On to Marcionism. Something I should mention as well is that Paul had a great influence on Gnosticism, because if you read Paul's works, he uses dichotomy between the spirit and the flesh. You'll see that among the Gnostics as well. Now, Marcion is a strange character. His father was a priest in northern Anatolia. And remember, this is before the canon of the New Testament was put together. So it's possible that the only work that he had access to was the Epistle to the Galatians. And wow, Paul's Epistle to the Galatians is very antinomian, very anti-Pharisaic or Jewish, if you'd like, and it preaches faith alone. And well, it's not that long, and I'm sure most of you have read it, and that the law cannot save you. You know, there's the famous line, "For if inheritance is based on law, it is no longer based on a promise, but God has granted it to Abraham by means of promise." So Marcion grew up on Galatians, and his father was a priest. He was Marcion was a very successful shipbuilder and merchant, and he took a pilgrimage to Rome and was able to read the rest of the New Testament as well as the Old, and he was appalled at what he saw. The God of the Old Testament he found to be jealous and cruel and petty and vindictive, and it didn't look anything like the compassionate God the Father and Christ and the Holy Spirit that he was used to in the New Testament. So let's dive into Marcion. Marcion lived around AD 60. That's when he preached. His active years was from AD 144 into the 400s. Marcion founded his heretical movement very early in the life of the church. It lingered well into the 5th century in the West, centuries longer in the East. Marcion adapted important ideas of Gnostic beliefs to form his own theology. From Gnosticism, he took the idea of the demiurge. That's correct. You see, remember how we said that the Gnostics saw the God of the Jews as the demiurge, the craftsman, a nasty, vindictive, jealous, spiteful being. Marcion saw the exact same thing. I mean, the Garden of Eden incident really pissed him off. Oh, here we go. He took the idea of the demiurge, whom he identified as jealous, vengeful God of the Old Testament. The Jewish God, the demiurge, is the God of law. In opposition to this cruel God of law, Marcion heralded the God of Jesus, the true God, sent to bring about the demise of the demiurge. The God, Jesus Christ, is the God of love, who has no connection with the law. Jesus' teachings was taken from the one true God. His passion and death came about through the machinations of the evil creator God of the Old Testament. This dualism of law and love is the main thesis of Marcion's system. Marcion recognized only Paul as a legitimate Christian. Now, I should say that what Marcion did was he took a copy of the Gospel of Luke and cut out the virgin birth and anything that would make Jesus human and all references to the Old Testament and called it the Evangelion, or the Gospel. And then he took the works of Paul, not the pastorals, but the works of Paul that we know now, as well as an epistle to the Alexandrians and an epistle to the Laodiceans, and he cut out all references or quotations of the Old Testament or the Old Testament God, and that was the Apostolicon. And by doing so, he forced the church's hand to come up with a canon. So he was the catalyst for the canon of scripture that we have today. Carrying on. Marcion recognized only St. Paul as a legitimate Christian authority of his teaching regarding freedom from the law. The apostles, in Marcion's view, did not fully understand the mission of Christ, being blinded by Judaism and its creator God. Also, because the other apostles, the other 12 apostles, met Jesus the man before he was crucified, resurrected, and transcended. So it was only Paul who he met as a spiritual being on the road to Damascus that gave him the true gnosis, the true enlightenment, unlike, his brother James or Peter or John. So Paul is the only apostle. Christ being blinded by Judaism and its creator God. Therefore, only 10 of St. Paul's epistles and a modified version of St. Luke, the Gospel of St. Luke. Any Jewish influence was removed, were given canonical status in Marcionism. Marcion was either not aware of the pastorals, other epistles of the New Testament, or aware of the pastorals, other epistles of the New Testament, or rejected them outright. The canon reflected Marcion's attempt to free the New Testament from Jewish influence. Yep. Unwittingly, Marcion helped the development of the Catholic Church's canon of sacred scripture, partially in reaction to Marcion's flawed, incomplete group of inspired texts. The Church gradually determined the canon and the official inspired writings of the New Testament. Now, Marcion was very popular. There was a point in history when there were almost as many. There was a point in history where there were more Arian bishops than there were Catholic or Orthodox bishops. But there was also a point in time when there was almost as many, if not more, Marcion Marcionite bishops than there were Catholic or Orthodox bishops. But the Marcion, I hold a lot of sympathy for Marcion. Because imagine if, you're reading Galatians and there's this God of love and he loves everyone unconditionally, and then you read something like Zephaniah or Habakkuk, or the story of Elijah. So I have a lot of sympathy for Marcion. Now, he is part of the Docete because he believed Christ was just an illusion, that he was purely spirit and didn't have any flesh to him, that sex, especially with women, childbirth, masturbation, any pleasure of the physical or natural world was anathema or sinful. And what else? I marked something else down. And that most people were, anyone who obeyed this God was going to be damned to hell. And there's only a special few. So sex, pleasure, and childbirth were totally wrong, and any type of recognizing any beauty in the physical world was wrong as well. But Marcion was not a Gnostic. Why? Because there was no secret teachings. Marcion gave away his teachings for free. This is probably why Marcionism lasted as long as it did, because with the Gnostics, you always had gurus popping out claiming that they had the true teaching. You had Valentinus, Basilides, you had the various groups of the Paulicians, the Bogomels, the Albigensians. So that's Marcion for you. I don't know if I'm looking for the word empathy or sympathy, but I actually really feel for Marcion. Alright, peace to you.